I was ready to die. I was ready to die in my addiction. The one main point that I want to get across to you today is that if you're struggling and you want a better life, you want to live better than you're currently living today, I want to tell you that you absolutely can. But I want to let you know to not get disheartened if you stumble along the way to ultimate recovery. I'm entering my second year of sobriety. I'm over 365 days sober. It's been a hard fought battle to get this far. And it's a struggle day to day, but it does get easier and it does get better. The life I'm living today is fulfilling by itself. I don't need any external substances. I don't need any external alcohol. I don't need vices to help me stay afloat in the existence that we find ourselves in. For me, I suffered a lot with existential crisis. The meaning of existence. Why are we here? Where do we come from? What happens after death? Where are we going? Why are we here? Why is there something instead of nothing? And I grappled with this, and it brought me to the brink of my destruction, or the brink of extinction. But now I've extinguished my addictions, and I want to relay a message of hope that you can do it too. And even if you're struggling with quitting drugs and alcohol, vice, and you keep stumbling, you keep relapsing, I want to let you know that's a normal process. I don't think anybody gets sober the first time they want to get sober or the first time they try to get sober. For the last 6 of the 7 years of my severe substance use addiction, I wanted to get sober. I knew I had a problem, but I couldn't help myself. I couldn't bring myself out of the hole that I had dug. I couldn't bring myself out of the darkness that I was in. I couldn't help myself out of my own addiction. We can't solve our own problems from the level that they're created on. And my problem was not being able to admit that I needed help, and I needed fellowship, and I needed a network, I needed community, that I needed a purpose, that I needed goals, that I needed routines, that I needed a vision, that especially I needed a support network and a family and friends and mentors and people who've been successful in recovery for years and decades to show me the path that it is possible. So I don't think anybody gets it the first time. And I failed so many times that at one point in my addiction, I was wrestling with whether I was an addict or not at this point, and I didn't want the connotation of being an addict, and I was struggling, and I remember fighting in my mind, like the narrative going on in my head, the self-talk that I had going on. I was wrestling with the idea of being an addict or not being an addict, because other people were pointing out my addiction, and I wasn't ready to admit that I was an addict. I thought I had it under control, that things were all right, but I didn't. I was delusional, and this is well after I fell off the wagon. But anyways, I accepted that I was an addict, and I played that out for the next year or two. I believe another 2 years I played that out. And I submitted to the addiction, to the drugs, to the alcohol, and I wasn't kidding myself anymore, and I lived that life, and I was ready to die. I was ready to die in my addiction. That's how far gone I was. And I only reached that point after years of trying to get sober, getting sober for a little bit, then falling back, getting sober, then failing and relapsing, getting sober, then relapsing again. I did that for years on end in this cycle of endless drug and alcohol perpetuity. I was just perpetuating this cycle of a negative feedback loop of drinking and getting sober and relapsing, and then drinking and going harder into drugs and going into a harder drug than the drug that I was on previously. And I did this for years until eventually I reached a point where I was like, okay, that's it. I'm an addict. I'm submitting. I'm just going to be an addict. And if I die, I die. This is the path I'm on. This is where I'm going. And I'm going to see it out to its conclusion. Once I reached that point, thankfully, thank God, I reached rock bottom. And rock bottom was my breaking point when I couldn't take it anymore. And I remember I ended up in the hospital. So a year ago today, I was in the hospital coming down off of a stimulant-induced psychosis incident. And I remember the psychosis was so bad that I thought that there were CIA agents across the yard from the house that I was living at in the time. I was upstairs in a bedroom looking out across the yard, and I thought that there's like a light. I thought the light was a headlamp for a car, and that there was CIA agents sitting in that car pointing a heart attack gun at me, trying to take me out because I had stumbled upon some crazy conspiracy theory that was going to bring them down, or bring some powerful figure down, and I thought that they were after me to silence me. So my heart was racing, maybe about 200 beats per minute. I was short of breath. I was sweating. I couldn't catch my breath. Psychosis was going. I was absolutely spun out of it. And I was like, you know what, God, please help me. Please, God, help me. And he's like, if you want to live, you need to ask for help and you'll live. So that's what I did. I asked for help. I got into the hospital. I came down off of the psychosis. When I got to the hospital and I realized I wasn't having a heart attack, as soon as they hooked up the EKG and the EKG came up fine, that I wasn't having a heart attack, I knew then that I was in psychosis. And I realized that if I was 99.9% certain this time I was having a heart attack, and the fact that I wasn't, that kind of kicked into realization for me. That I had a serious problem, and that I was reaching the point of no return. If I had continued down that path, maybe I wouldn't have lost my body, although it kind of felt like I was heading towards an early grave, but I would have lost my mind. Going into those states of psychosis, it's a nightmare, and they were getting worse. So my mind was breaking before my body was breaking. So once I realized that I wasn't having a heart attack, I came to my senses and I said, okay, that's it. I'm in psychosis. This is enough. I have pushed myself to the brink of the edge. And I checked myself into a 90-day program for recovery. And I've been sober ever since, and now I'm entering my second year of sobriety, and I haven't felt better. I feel like I'm young again. I feel like I have my youth and my vitality and my strength back again.